Hey guys, welcome to another show of Hillside. This is Chuck here. Man, am I excited again to just spend the next 20-25 minutes with you guys just talking about hope and hopefully can challenge you guys a little bit to go out and love somebody this weekend, or this week actually, this Sunday. Hopefully you've already done that this weekend. Yeah, so my camping trip was great last week. Got to hang out with some good brothers. We actually met a new guy. Caleb, got to hang out and chat with him. That was fun. Oh, I always love meeting people and getting to know those stories and things going on. So it was good. Saw no bears, which is great. But I did have one thing happen to me while I was gone. Somebody broke into my garage. Can you believe that? They ransacked my garage just to take my limbo pole. Man. How low can somebody go? Hilarious. Funny. Okay, let's get serious here. Take two. All right. So, hey, just want to challenge you guys this week. I was listening to the radio earlier today on my lunch break, and they were talking about the prodigal son, and, it's just the same story. Everybody knows the story. This kid, wanted to set out on his own, didn't want to work the fields, didn't want to, do all that stuff, wanted to be his own person and his own dude. And so he went to his father one day and he said, "Hey, I want what's mine and I want it now so I can take it and leave." And so the father gave him his portion of his inheritance. And we know he went to a distant land, blew it all, had fun, just lived it up until one day he reached in his pockets and said, "Oops, I don't have any more money." And all of his friends left. It's funny in the prodigal son, you don't hear that when he ran out of money, anybody came up to him and said, "Hey, you broke? Hey, I'll give you some money. Hey, I'll help you out." That didn't happen. And so he tried to get a job, couldn't. Got so hungry he started to eat in the same place that the animals ate at, and he was like, "What am I doing? Why am I eating this stuff when I could go home and beg my father for a job, because even his servants eat better than I do?" So he set off on a journey back home, and as he was approaching the top of the hill in the distance, his father, who was tending to his fields, looked up and saw him. And didn't wait for him to come groveling back to him, didn't wait for him to plead for forgiveness. He saw him and he took off running. And I'm sure this probably blew the son's mind away, because I'm sure the whole time his son was walking home, he was like, "Man, this is probably not going to end up well. My father's probably not going to let me back. I'm going to be just as destitute and just as starving as I am now. There's no hope. I shouldn't have done what I did. He's not going to forgive me. How on earth could he ever forgive me?" And all this stuff. And then to see, I'd like to know what went through his mind when he saw his father running after him. I mean, I'm sure he wasn't sure at this point what was going to happen until his father got to him. And his father embraced him and hugged him and wept and cried because his son was back. And not only did he do that, but he put his robe on him, put his ring on his finger, ordered the servants to kill the best cow. They had a humongous feast. We all know that the other brother comes in, gets jealous, says, "I've been here the whole time. I've been working hard for you." And the father says, "Yeah, you've been here, but my son, your brother, who was dead, is now alive and has come back to us." So what I want to focus on is, sometimes when we think about things and we see things, sometimes we just focus on one side of the story, and we're not really, and that kind of sets our mind and our biases and sets our opinions. But I think sometimes if we can flip it over and look at the story from a different perspective, and just like situations in life, I just think we can, I think a new opportunity for a new meaning and a new beginning can come out of that. So the speaker on the radio that I was listening to today, you know, he really challenged us who was listening, because, you know, the name of the story is The Prodigal Son. But what if we renamed it and called it The Waiting Father? I was like, I've never even, the father to me is, before he ran to embrace his son, I never thought before that moment what the father was doing. You know, it's just, you know, the story is, your brain is just so focused on the moment of embrace that you don't think about, and you think about what events led the son to come back to that embrace, but you don't think about what the father went through and what he was doing until that moment happened. You know, I'm sure once he gave the money to his son and his son left, I'm sure he was heartbroken, he was sad, he was hurt. You know, it's hard when a family member rejects you, you know, and says that you're not good enough. You know, I can do it by myself. I can do it better. You know, or even anyone in life, when we encounter that, you know, it's tough. It's just tough to hear those words. You know, I don't need you, and you know, and we don't know how long the son was gone. I mean, he could have been gone a month. He could have been gone a year, 10 years. Who knows? Nobody. It's never ever. It's not really told in the story how long this son was gone. So, I mean, so here's this father who's lost one of his sons, you know, who has abandoned him, left, and doesn't write home, has no idea what's going on with him, doesn't know if he's safe, doesn't know if he's alive, doesn't know if he's dead, doesn't know if he's become successful or whatever. And day after day after day, he has to continue on with his own life, because there's still cattle to tend to, and the property to tend to, and just life to tend to, and it's just you know, it's tough. I kind of think of that in my own situation with my son being off in college. Not even closely the same situation, but my son is separated from me. You know, he is not in the house anymore. So I have to, you know, just hope that things are going well. Now, I call him every week. I had the benefit of doing that. The father in the prodigal son story did not have that opportunity to do that. So I can call him and have a conversation with him and know that everything's going okay. Know that everything is going well. You know, it stirs that up in me. And sometimes when I call him and he doesn't answer, you know, I get a little impatient, I get a little worried, but then, you know, that phone call happens, and that phone call comes in, and then we just talk and embrace and talk about things, even though he's you know, far away at college. You know, our conversations brings us closer together, you know, brings us back close together. And so it's just a blessing for me. And so here's this poor father who couldn't do that. He had no idea where his son was. He had no idea how his son was. But he knew he had to continue on in life. He knew he had a life there that he had to still take care of. And it's just crazy, you know, and he never gave up hope. I mean, for somebody to run that fast when they see their son, is a father who never gave up hope, you know, and it's just amazing that no matter however long the son was gone, he never gave up hope. He just persevered. He continued on with life. And then when that moment happened, you know, all that hope and sadness and you know, uncertainty and anger, I'm sure there was some anger and confusion and hurt, all of that collided. All of that collided into an embrace, you know, and it wasn't, what are you doing here? You know, are you here for more money? You know, there was none of that. He wrapped him and hugged him as if the kid never left. That's amazing. It's just amazing to me. I mean, how is that possible? I mean, so that's just I think a big part of the story that's missed is is this theme of hope and uncertainty. You know, like I said, he didn't know anything about his son once he left, didn't know what was going on, but he still carried hope that one day he would see him again. You know, there was anger. Sure, like I said, I'm sure he was angry because his son basically walked out on him and walked out on the farm. And back in those days, everybody pitched in. I mean, it was a family affair to take care of their estates and their properties back then. Nobody took a day off. Everybody worked. Everybody had a job to do. And for the son to just blow that aside and wipe that aside for his own satisfaction and for his own dreams and ideas, misled as they were, and he didn't hold a grudge. He didn't take the son and say, well, you know what, you can start here and work your way back in. He didn't do that. He said, come in and let's have a feast. My son is back. And it's just amazing. And I think in life, if we can kind of take a situation where it seems like it's hopeless and it's just full of rebellion and full of uncertainty, if you can flip that over and look on the other side of that and see the opposite of that is hope. Hope and expectant return, you know. I mean, life can throw a curveball at us in any moment and, you know, can cause us to just focus on one side of the story, you know, instead of looking at both sides, and realize that, you know, both sides can come together to form just a perfect union in the middle. And it's great. It's wonderful. I've seen it in my own life. I've seen it in other people's lives that I've talked to. I mean, just a handshake and a smile when you see somebody you haven't seen in a while, you know, it's almost like their mind just can't fathom that somebody is that happy to see them who hasn't seen them in forever. And it's just great. And so I just encourage you guys to go out there and do that this week. Try to just love somebody. Again, that's the whole theme of this show, is just try to just love somebody. Love on people. I like to tell my jokes to people. You know, I get a lot of mixed reviews, but you know what? I'm not going to stop doing it. Because I know deep down inside that moment is just a moment of joy, you know. It's gotta be. It's just gotta be. And I'm gonna embrace that. And I'm gonna go and look for those guys that are struggling and you know, show them that there is another side to the situation, you know. There's always another side. Like Job. Oh my gosh. Job, this guy had it all. I mean, this guy was the Rockefeller of the Bible, of the Old Testament. This guy had it all. He had land, cattle, children, riches, had it all. Had it all. And Satan came to God one day and said, what about your buddy Job? And God said, what about him? He said, yeah, he's pretty righteous and he's pretty holy. And God said, yep. And Satan says, yeah, I bet it's only because he's got all those riches and land and cattle and all that. He said, I bet if you take all that away, Job won't be so joyful and righteous. So Jesus, God, in his infinite wisdom, which we will never be able to understand, said, okay, take it all away. You can do whatever you want, but you cannot kill Job. So Job lost everything. So the story here is about a man who lost everything. But I want to flip that around here in a minute and see if we can kind of see the other side of the story. So here's this guy that lost everything. I mean, to the point that he wished he wasn't even born. You know, his wife and his friends are telling him to curse God. Look what God did to you. You know, you were a righteous man and you still lost everything. You know, but Job said, I will not do that. I will blot out my name, blot out that I was born before I will do that. Now let's flip that over into another moment instead of loss. Let's flip that over into showing that God, no matter what we're going through, is still in control. Because God knew God knew when Satan came to him and challenged him, God knew he was going to win. God knew that Job was going to win. God knew that Job was going to get blessed tenfold over. He knew that. He already knew the end of the story. But he allowed Job to go through that to make a liar out of the devil, to prove that what he puts in our ears, those negative things in our ears, doesn't lessen God's control in the situation. Doesn't lessen. Look, Job lost everything. Everything. And he could have rightfully cursed God. He could have rightfully turned his back and said, you know what, forget it. You know, I tried. I don't understand. And yes, he had doubts, and he had questions, and he had things, but he never cursed God, and he never gave up hope that he knew that God was in control of the situation. And sure enough, he was. So instead of looking at Job as a story of loss, let's look at it as a story of hopeful gain, you know, and that God is in control, and no matter what situation we're going through, you know, he's always in control, and he's always working to show us that he's in control. We may not always see it, we may not always feel it, but he's there, and he's listening, and he's planning, and he's molding, and he's working, and he's just doing all this stuff, and it's just great to know that. You know, there's so many stories in the Bible, you know, of just God's mercy, you know, God showing, you know, moments and flipping them on their heads, you know, like when Lazarus died, you know, that was a story of death and sadness and anger, because here's Jesus healing all these, you know, Lazarus' sisters probably thinking, here's Jesus healing all these strangers, yet he won't come heal one of his good friends. And I'm sure that was playing in their minds. So here's a story of sadness and rejection and doubt and hurt. And Jesus, he knew what he was doing. He knew what he was doing, because he wanted to give the Israelites a taste of what's going to happen with him, of days that are coming. You know, so the story is about death, but if you flip it over and see what Jesus did, it now becomes a story about life and resurrection, and how Jesus used Lazarus as a precursor to show what God was going to do through Jesus to bring hope into our lives. You know, and it's just awesome, because when he gets there, she goes, if you were here, he would have been saved. He would have lived. But that wasn't the point of the story. Lazarus living was not the point of the story. Lazarus dying and being resurrected as a symbolic precursor to Jesus is the story. You know, people, you know, there's a story when this young girl dies, and you know, once again, people are focused on death. People are focused on the death of the moment. How many times do we think that our dreams are gone and over and ruined, and that's it? Throw in the towel. That's it. And then all of a sudden you get a phone call, or you get or an email or a text, and it's like, okay, well, maybe I got one more shot. Maybe I got one more chance. You know, and when the parents came to Jesus and they were weeping and they said, our child is dead, he flipped that over and said, she's not dead. She's only sleeping. Now, can you imagine what people around Jesus were doing? They were like, hey, this guy thinks he's a doctor. This guy doesn't know the difference between life and death. I'm sure people were probably saying, no, Jesus, she ain't breathing. She gone. She's not alive anymore. But Jesus, once again, he knew the end of the story. You know, he is in firm control. You know, he walks in, goes into the little girl's room, sits beside her, grabs her hand, and it's just a powerful. It wasn't even like, you know, thunder and lightning and just, you know, just earth shattering. He just sat next to her and he said, wake up. And immediately she woke up. Now, can you imagine how quickly the parents and everybody in that room, in that house's perspective on this story changed in an instant? They went from hopelessness, death, closure, finality to life, to second chances, to a renewed hope. I mean, it's just crazy how Jesus does those things to help reverse our mindsets of the situation that we're in, because there's always two sides to every situation. There's hopelessness or there's hope. There's defeat or there's victory. There's either sadness or there's joy. You know what I mean? There's either a wall or a door. You know, and when we can shift our mindset in the situations that we're in from the negative to the positive, and see that there is an answer. There is always an answer for everything. Always an answer for everything. Then it just gets, it's wonderful. It's wonderful to think that. It's wonderful to experience that. You know, and then when you see that and you start to learn that and you start to realize that, then when situations come and hardships come and those big waves come crashing, you know, when the disciples are crossing the Sea of Galilee and this monstrous storm comes up and starts blowing this boat around, and I'm telling you, back then they didn't have lifeboats, they didn't have metal massive boats. They had these small wooden boats, and to have the wind blowing and tossing this thing around, and they're scared and they're hopeless. They're like, oh my gosh, we're all gonna drown, we're all gonna die. Even though they had the King of Kings sleeping at the front of the boat, they immediately thought, oh my gosh, we're totally gonna die. Why did we get in this boat? Is this how it's gonna end? They were so fearful. And then they even went kind of chastised Jesus a little bit. They said, how can you be sleeping in such a storm? How can you be sleeping when we're about to drown? And Jesus says, you know, why do you have so little faith? You know, why do you think that this is the only outcome that's possible in this situation? Why are you focused on the waves instead of focused on the one who made the waves? You know, and Jesus gets up, and I'm sure he probably stood at the front of the boat. If I was him, I would be shaking my head. I'd be like, man, come on, guys, really? But he didn't. He stood there and he said, be still. Oh my gosh, can you imagine going from a hurricane to a sea as calm as a mill pond? I mean, just in an instant, just whoosh, and the sun comes out, blue waters, calm, boat is calm, and here's Jesus standing at the front of the boat. You know what I mean? Standing in front of the disciples, standing in between the storm and the disciples, which is pretty powerful if you think about it. Here he is standing in between the disciples and the storm, and the disciples are fearful, afraid, thinking this is the end. And Jesus knows there's never an end until Jesus says there is. And he says two words, be still. And immediately, it wasn't like the storm subsided and trickled down. He said immediately the storm left. And it's just great when we can, like I said, once again get our mindset that whatever situation we're going through, if we can flip it from hopelessness and focus on the hope and focus on the one who can give mending and healing to that situation, it's just a powerful mindset, because you can start to walk confidently through situations. Doesn't mean you're not going to be terrified. Doesn't mean you're not going to be uncertain. But you're going to have a confident uncertainty, which is hard to imagine. But with Jesus, you can have a confident uncertainty, because you can be certain that that whatever you're going through is going to change, and somebody is always looking out for you. And it's just a powerful, man, that show just totally helped me to realize that the negative things that I've been focused on, I need to flip that around and try to think about the positive things. So I'm going to leave you with that, guys. Just have a great week, man. It's been beautiful outside. I love it. It's supposed to be nice all next week. Just have a great week and go out. Like I said, if there's a situation that you're struggling with and you've just been focused on the negative side of it, just try to flip it around and try to find some ways to put some positive hope into it. You know, some confident uncertainty, and I'm telling you, man, life will change. Life will, it may not be as immediately as the storm on the Sea of Galilee, but I'm telling you, it will over time get better. Until then, we love you here at East to West. Not East to West, I did it again. Hillside. I've only been saying Hillside for like 6 months now. My last show ever, I will get it right. But anyway, have a great week, guys. We love you here. And like I said at the end, go out and make a stranger a friend, but more importantly, don't make a friend a stranger. We'll see you next week. Have a good one, guys.